Deb Rose and Larry Rose and Sue Schwartz, we're grateful for you being with us tonight and for your work with Casa. And we invite you to share how it is that you open your hearts and are inviting us to open our hearts to children.
Well, thank you, Pastor Bridget. We appreciate the time and the chance to share our work with Casa with all of you. To set the stage tonight, we're going to have Deb one of her stories.
Larry, it's a little difficult. It's a little difficult to hear you. I don't know. We were able to hear Deb pretty well, so I don't know if.
Well, we're not very far apart.
Right, I know. Well, that was better. So
okay, I'll get to the middle.
Yeah.
So we're gonna have Deb share a story that sets the stage for what we're going to talk about this evening.
All right. This is my imagined story. Imagine you live at home with one parent, the other is incarcerated. You attend school with your neighborhood friends. You play at your friends' houses. It's dinner time and you're hungry, so you go home. But the door is locked and no one is there. Imagine. Imagine going around to your friends' houses to get something to eat. You don't know where your parent is, and it's getting dark. And this has happened before. Imagine. Imagine being injured and not receiving medical attention. Wearing the same clothes and not washing up for days. Seeing the police at your house again and again and again and again, and watching your friends' moms talk with the police. Imagine. Imagine the charge is child neglect, which, according to state statute, reads in part, quote, that for reasons other than poverty, the parent is seriously endangering the physical health of the child, end quote. Your parent is taken away by the police. You are taken away by strangers. And today is your 7th birthday. Imagine.
And those are the kids we work with. That particular story, just from a historical standpoint, Casa Brown County, the Doctors and Recitals Award winner.
Oh, Larry, it is still difficult to hear you. We didn't.
Okay.
I didn't catch any of that. I feel badly for the two of you.
And we're right next to each other.
Yeah, there. That's much better. That's much better.
All right. I just have to get to the center. So all I said was that particular story, which is one of Deb's cases, got Casa Brown County the award for Doctors in Recital a few years ago. So it's been used and well received. So I just want to share a brief history of National Casa, because we work at 3 levels. There's National Casa, then there's the Wisconsin Casa Association, which is our state level organization, and then we have local programs that Sue will talk about at the county level. So National Casa was formed in 1977 when Judge Soka decided that he needed some help with a case, and we're going to play a video in just a second. Last year, National Casa had 948 local programs, like the one here in Brown County, spread across 49 states, with almost 97,000 volunteers and over 275,000 children served. And I believe, Sue can correct me, that the states are serving about half of the eligible children. So there's still a lot of room to grow, and Wisconsin's far short of that. But we'd like to play a short video of the judge that started the whole program.
Well, of course, now we have to find it. We had it before. So just a second.
You should look at your tabs.
Yeah, I should. Let me just look here.
Don't feel badly. Even the high schoolers who I was doing this with last week were struggling to get the technology exactly. Right. And if our teens can't do tech, then
yeah, I know. Can you see that? No, you can't.
No. So have you gone down to screen sharing?
I was. You know, we practiced this too. Oh, I have to get to Zoom.
It's okay. I've been doing this for 3 years and I still
Well,
run
and we-
into glitches.
No. Well, and I don't want to leave the meeting either. So we did this afternoon. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, if you scroll at the bottom of your screen,
Yep,
you should have a bunch of plugs at the bottom of your screen.
right.
So it's below your Zoom window. It should be on your taskbar at the bottom.
Yeah, that's where I am.
Do you have the Zoom up?
Yep.
So
Pull it up
you're
on-
looking at all of us.
Pull it up on Google and the national website. Is that what you're trying to do?
Yeah, it's there. We have it all set.
Just click back on.
Well, I am trying. No, here. Maybe that? No. Okay, well,
Well, we'll try that. We'll find it.
It's the National Casa website. I can work
It
on trying to
is.
find it.
It is.
Okay.
no, we have all these tabs open. And just to go.
You
So
should be
can
able
you,
to just highlight the one tab you want and, click on it
yeah,
and it's not working.
yeah, this. No, it's where we are. Nope. Nope, that's Brown
Are
County.
you on screen share, Deb?
You know what? I don't even see any of you anymore.
Just Sue.
I can see Sue.
Hit share screen at the bottom.
Yep, got it. Got it. Yep. But it's not something that's open that I can click on to show you, but it is open. So, well, that's too bad. We shared that this afternoon.
I'm on the national website. Do you know where it is?
Sorry. Thanks, Bridget.
And are you looking for pictures of judges?
Bridget, I would probably click on About Casa.
Yeah,
Yep.
Okay, about us, national organization,
Yes.
Yeah, then it shows our history.
our history, which,
Yep. That's it.
right.
okay. And it's the video from
judge.
David Succo. Okay,
Right. That's the guy.
let's see if I
Thank
can
you,
get this
Bridget.
to play. Well, we're not quite there yet. Let's see if we can get this to happen.
Teamwork.
Share screen.
Make sure you share the audio also.
There we go.
I see it. Thank you, Bridget. You
Can
can,
you hear?
no,
On your share, you need to click share computer audio.
wow. A lesson for everybody. All right, oh. Mhm.
Can you summarize
Jeff,
for us
Jeff, what was that?
You should see when you're on the video,
Mm-hmm.
you should see near the bottom of the screen, share audio or share computer audio, something like that. It's on your share screen before you actually choose the item you're sharing.
It's on the Zoom part, not the video part.
Right.
Ah, there we are. Hallelujah. We got it. This will happen. And we've all learned
Yes.
And have had an experience of patience.
It terrified me to make decisions about kids when I didn't have anybody there that was only advocating for the child, not as an attorney, but as a party to the case. I mean, every other person that's not competent to represent themselves in a civil action of any kind is appointed a guardian ad litem. Now, who's more unable to represent themselves than a 3 or 4 or 5 or 10-year-old, 12-year-old child? I was faced with a case where a little 3-year-old girl had been brought to Harborview Hospital, and she said the doctor there thought that she probably suffered the injuries from child abuse and called the authorities. And the mother said, no, she fell off the swing, and anyway, my boyfriend's moved out and isn't coming back. And I looked around the courtroom because I had to make a decision at some point about whether to take a 3-year-old child out of the only home she had ever known and put her with strangers, and how would that affect her? And if I returned her home, was she really in danger? And so I looked around the courtroom, and there was really no one there who could only speak up for that child. I thought that maybe we can get volunteers who will represent these kids, train them, and ask them to represent these children in court, and get a lawyer to represent them, because they would become a party to the action representing the child, and they would have a lawyer representing them. And so I asked my bailiff to call 6 or 7 people in the community and explain this idea to them, and ask if they wanted to bring a brown bag lunch up to juvenile court and talk about it. When I walked in the lunchroom, there were 50 people there. And I said, this is going to work. And it has. I thought after I retired from the bench that I had gotten all these people into this, and I probably ought to find out what it was all about myself to be a volunteer. It was one of the most satisfying and difficult things I've ever done. They almost self-select. They're the people that really care enough about children to go through the training, and then to know that they're going to spend a lot of time working for that child. And those are the ones that I think we've got right now. Judges need Casa volunteers in their courts, and they really need them to be a party to the action, because there's no one else in that courtroom whose only function in that case is to provide a recommendation that's based on just the child's needs. Everyone else has some other role. No one else in that courtroom can do that except a volunteer Casa guardian ad litem. There's no one else to speak for the child if you're not there.
But thank you for finding that, Bridget. That's
Thank
helpful. So turn it over to Sue here to tell us about Wisconsin Casa and what she does for the association. Sue?
Thanks, Larry. Thanks, everybody, for joining us tonight. Can you hear me okay, Bridget? Yes? Okay. So Larry asked me to just share with you the history of Wisconsin Casa. Wisconsin Casa is actually celebrating its 20th anniversary this year. So we were founded in 2001. Our primary responsibility is legislative work. It's meeting with various stakeholders around the state to grow the Casa program in the state. In probably about 8 or 9 during the recession, the downturn in our economy, the state organization lost funding, and they actually lost their staff. So then they were run for about 4 or 5 years by volunteers. And in 2015, some of those volunteers went to the state legislature to receive a new state funding to reinvigorate Wisconsin Casa. So I was hired in March of 2016. Yo, Larry, I'm about to celebrate 5 years with you. And my job primarily is awareness with Supreme Court, awareness with legislators, awareness with judges and the Department of Health and Human Services, not only at the local level, but at the state level. We currently, I'm following Larry's, we currently have 9 CASA programs in the state that serve 12 counties. And what that means, because we have 72 counties, that there are 60 counties that currently don't have a CASA program. And that's my primary responsibility, is to meet with the key stakeholders in those counties to start the work on getting a CASA program to serve their children. So of the 9 programs serving 12 counties, we have just over 500 CASA advocates across the state that serve about 1,000 children. We don't have our 2020 data in yet. We'll have it in at the end of the month. But last year it was about 500 serving 1,000. Currently, I'm looking at his list again. He's a demanding supervisor. Emphasizing our growth. So our growth comes from when judges generally hear about the CASA program and the impact that it has on the children that they serve, is the judges in the counties will usually reach out to me. And right now we're working with St. Croix County in western Wisconsin, Marathon, Langlade, and Wapaka in central Wisconsin, Dodge in southern central Wisconsin, Sheboygan, and Racine counties. Those are on our short list. It takes about 18 to 24 months to start a new CASA program. So that's kind of an update of where we're at right now and where we're going to go in the short term.
Sue, what's the current funding source? How are we getting funded?
Yes, Wisconsin CASA. So Larry kind of said in the beginning that we're at 3 levels. There's National CASA, which oversees the entire network across the country. 49 of the 50 states have a state organization, which is what I lead in the state of Wisconsin. And then there's 940 some local programs across the country. And our funding for Wisconsin CASA comes from state tax dollars. We are funded unanimously, bipartisan, straight across the board by all of the current legislators. In 2017, I was given the opportunity to testify before Speaker's Joint Task Force on Foster Care, and they tripled our funding. So currently, our primary funding comes from state tax dollars.
And we're funded through Department of Justice, right? Is that the?
We are, yes.
Right. How about the local programs? Where do they get their dollars?
The primary funder for our local programs, of course, is a typical nonprofit fundraising, but we have, so I should have counted this before I got on tonight, 1, 2, 3, 4. We have 5 of our 9 programs that are funded by the Victims of Crimes Act, which is a federal fund that distributes millions of dollars to the states every year through the criminal justice system. And that money then is distributed to nonprofits in each state for nonprofits that serve victims of crime. And the VOCA funding that comes into the CASA network annually is about $1.4 million. And that's distributed between those few programs. The rest of the funding comes from classic nonprofit fundraising, corporate donations, foundations, individuals, events, stuff like that. It's hard work to keep us funded.
It is. As we're out there trying to start programs, what are you running into as obstacles? What makes it difficult? I mean, not every county is eligible, but what makes it difficult to get it going?
It's really, really difficult to get the key stakeholders all on the same page. So the primary stakeholder in each county is the judge. And in most counties, there's multiple judges. So you really have to work on building relationships to make sure that all of the judges in a county are on board with starting a CASA program. And then the other key stakeholder is the Director of Health and Human Services. And once you have those 2 entities on board, then it's really about continuing to build relationships, whether it's with the district attorney or the court counsel, and then working with the community foundation, building steering committees. And as I go on with this, I'm thinking, oh my God, I'm doing this all the time. It does take 18 to 24 months. It's a lot of relationship building.
In each of the programs in Wisconsin, different states do it differently, but Wisconsin, all of those local programs are independent, autonomous nonprofit entities. So it's not only saying we want to put something in Marathon County, you got to form the steering committee, create the nonprofit entity, get the board of directors, hire the executive director. So it takes a while. May or may not be the most efficient way, but it's how Wisconsin is structured. Some years ago, Sue and I were sitting in the jury room in Marinette County Courthouse, and Judge Morrison, if you've ever met Judge Morrison, is a good friend of Nan Bush and Terry Bush. Great guy, a good judge. I think now about ready to step down, but we're sitting there and he wants the program. And he looks at us and says, but the judge doesn't have any money. So it was very quiet for a few minutes, or it seemed like minutes, probably was just seconds. And the county administrator finally looked up and said, well, we do. So we embarrassed him into getting some funding from Marinette County. But, so have any of you got questions for Sue on how this is running and what's going on? Jeff always has questions. Not tonight.
Just on a follow-up to what you just named there, Sue. I guess my question would be, what kind of I can't imagine why a judge or a health department would resist a program like this. What are some of the roadblocks or the arguments that folks have for not going for a program like this?
So generally there's two arguments that I have to overcome when I'm working with a new county. The first one is very often the Department of Health and Human Services director will feel like we are an oversight of their department instead of a partner in enhancing the work that they do, and they really don't want that oversight. So it takes a lot of relationship building with that director between me and them to help them understand that we are not an oversight. We help them. We actually create another layer of safety for their children that are placed out of home because our advocates visit with those children once a week, whereas their social workers by statute only have to see the children once a month. So that's generally the one thing that they go, oh, I didn't know that. So it really, is a liability issue. The other barrier that I often hear is, our guardian ad litems do a great job. So guardian ad litem is an attorney who is a member of the bar who is assigned to a child who is removed from their family of origin. And that GAL very often doesn't even see the children until 10 minutes before a court hearing. But oftentimes, because, it's judges and attorneys and, they live in the same world, they struggle with somebody being perceived as the voice of the child. So again, it's about relationship building and helping them understand that the perception that they have has to change.
That makes lots of sense. Lots of sense. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I have a question. What exactly does the advocate do, and how is their training?
Deb, do you want to answer that?
There we go. Tina, that was a perfect segue. That was next. So,
Oh, okay.
So I was going to ask Deb to share a bit about her cases and how she got involved with Casa. Do you want to go ahead?
I will. Well, my Casa journey began in the spring of 2013 at Casablanca. It sounds romantic, but it was just the annual fundraiser for Casa of Brown County at that time. And I was getting towards the end of my teaching career as an elementary teacher, and I knew I needed something to do that involved children. I went to that fundraiser and banquet, and if there had been a sign-up sheet, I would have signed on the dotted line right away. I found out later how to go about applying and interviewing and learning about the program. The following fall, I had retired, and Larry and I took the Casa training together. At that time, it was 40 hours. Now it's 30 hours. And currently with COVID, it's virtual training, which is really pretty tricky to do, but they've done a great job converting everything. We met in person, and at the end of our training, we are sworn in the courts as voices of the child. We are just the advocate for the child. And after we were sworn in, I took my first case and Larry took a chairmanship. So it kind of explains our marriage. But I ended up my first case over the 7 years when I was an advocate. I had 5 cases with 9 children total, 5 family units. And I stayed with the case until it was closed. A person who is a Casa advocate is assigned to a case when the child is placed under CHIPS order, which is a child in need of protective services. And that's the judge's decision. And he will ask the Casa office to take the file and match an advocate with this case. So every case I had, I would review with my Casa supervisor and just say, yes, I think that would be a good fit for me, or no, I don't think it would be a good fit, or listen to all the reasons why she thought it would be a good fit. And I stayed with the case until the CHIPS order was closed, which meant that there had been a decision that the children were going to be in a safe and permanent home. They hopefully were with their birth parents or their biological parents, or maybe a relative. Sometimes it was foster care, sometimes it was adoption. All of mine ended quite happily with the children being with their own parents. So the first case I had was 3 children, ages 1, 2, and 3, and they had 2 older brothers. So I took this case with another Casa advocate because for me to visit once a week, I would have all 5 children no matter what. And she would visit a different day and she would have all 5 children no matter what. So we kind of teamed up and were able to focus on the 3 that I had and the 2 that she had. And that worked out really, really well. My next case was an infant who was less than 1 and had a very, very young mother. And I thought that my job then was actually explaining to the parent why I was there and telling the family what my role was. They pretty much thought I was the caseworker, but I was not. That case ended quickly. The child was allowed to stay with the young mother who had a second child shortly after that. She had a good safety net though. She lived with her mother and her grandfather and her uncle, and her brother lived next door. But some of the visits for that were unusual in that I showed up, and this is pre-COVID-19, so we were actually in people's homes. And I would show up and I learned to bring things because often I would show up and they would just hand me the children and disappear. And I needed a lot more interaction there. And that second case, what I remember is the young mom would just say, just go play with your lady. And when she's done, I'll come and play with you. And I learned to help that mom understand that she needed to be part of what I was doing with this child. Number 1, for my safety, interacting with that child. And number 2, that she could observe how I played with the child. She didn't really know how to mother. And some of her requirements in the case to be given full custody again were that she needed parenting classes. how do you read a book to a child? How do you play games? What can you do with a less than 1-year-old? Well, you can sort colors, you can stack blocks, you can play cars and trucks, you can do all sorts of things. And eventually, I think she felt comfortable being a mom. It was a short case, but it ended happily. My third case is the imagined story that I started with. And when I read the case, I decided that this little girl needed me to be in her life once a week. And we had a great time. We just really enjoyed being with each other. I visited her at school, at daycare, at foster care daycare, at the summer programs for the Y. And eventually her incarcerated dad was released and got an apartment. And I had to go and visit with an ex-con in his apartment to be with his daughter. And that was the hurdle for me, to just get past what his past was and just decide that I was there, and just ended up really enjoying his company. I made a point of shaking his hand to say hello and shaking his hand to thank him and say goodbye. And we played games. He was so proud of his little girl. He really, really was. But she had never used sidewalk chalk. She had never blown bubbles and run after them. She loved to cook. She wasn't a good reader. So we did all sorts of things together. I think being a first grade teacher and just loving that age group, it was fun for me. We really had a good time. I visited, as I said, at school. So I got to know the school secretary and the principal and the social worker. And it ended up that the social worker had not visited the house, but decided that she would be comfortable visiting the apartment if I was going to be there. So a Casa advocate is really there for the child, but you can be a good connector for all these other things that are going on in this child's life. That case did end happily, that the father had completed his parenting classes. He had all his diplomas and certificates up on the wall with everything else. And when the case was over, they moved to another city to be with relatives. And the sad part of this case is that he was a much older parent. He was probably more like a grandpa. But living in this other city with a lot of family support, he died quite suddenly. So this little girl didn't have a mother. The mother wasn't interested in doing her parenting classes to get custody of the child. So this little girl now didn't have any parent, but was placed with an older brother, and actually is doing quite well. I saw the school secretary a number of years later and heard what this little Imagine girl had been doing. So that was good to know. After that, I had another tough case that I shared with another Casa advocate. There were 5 children. I had the 2 youngest, and then the 3 oldest had another Casa advocate. And it was a challenge because the mother didn't want us there. And my job as a Casa advocate was to be there for the children and let this mother know that if she called and canceled every week, I would just say, well, that's fine. I'll just put that in my report to the judge because these are court-ordered visits and this is my job. The house was dark. It was a little spooky. It was always a challenge to go in, but I usually played outside with the kids. We would play basketball. We just ended up going outside. We went to the park a couple of times, but the mom was my challenge. She was a very frightening person, very, very, very much a bully. And one summer, We were making our normal visit, and the other Casa and I got to the house and it was completely deserted. No furniture, no cars, no people. They had disappeared in the dead of night under police radar because the mom was on probation. No one knew where they were. They just completely disappeared. So again, a CASA advocate plays a lot of different roles, and my report helped the judge understand what the family situation was. And we eventually discovered that they had driven to the East Coast to be with relatives. And we found out because they had called the school there, had called the school in Green Bay to get information. So we found them. I'm not sure what the end of that case was. And then my last case was a case where I had two little boys. They were like 1 and 2 when I first started with them. The 1-year-old wasn't walking, wasn't talking. And after being with him for 4 years, the case lasted 4 years, he just grew into this delightful child that could laugh and run and ride a bike. And his older brother was fun too. I used to visit him at school and have school lunch with him, and we would share different things. So the work of a CASA advocate is to be there for the child, to be the voice of the child, but you get to be a part of their lives. The older child in this case just decided that he would explain my presence to his friends by saying, well, she's my grown-up friend. She only comes to play with me. Because you can imagine, I never looked like any of my CASA children. I never lived in the neighborhoods where my CASA children lived. So it was always a dance of, you know, how do I get there? What can I do? How do I say who I am? How do I help this child? And just knowing that my reports to the judge would convey what the children were going through, how their parents treated them, what I observed in the house, how they were fed, what they were fed, books they were reading, television shows that were on, just all sorts of different things, and just being able to advocate for them in the court. That last case ended so happily, just amazingly happily. The mom had her own issues. She was actually in jail for a while and had to face different charges and do parenting classes. She ended up with a different boyfriend. They had a little girl together and they moved to a different county. So even though I was a Brown County advocate, I still traveled to another county to visit. And those children are extremely happy. The mom has 100% custody. It turned out to be worth every single minute of it. The hard part with any case is when it's over, it's over. There's no further connection. There's no further involvement. You're just finished. But I knew that they were in good hands, most of them, when we finished. So I think the training, Tina, is really thorough. There's continuing education every year. It's diversity, it's childhood trauma, it's adverse childhood experiences, it's poverty, it's all sorts of things. And there's some uncomfortable topics, but being aware of them is important, and understanding what these kids are going through. We just had a fabulous webinar in February celebrating Black History Month, and it was called Children of the Storm by Dr. Fletcher from Case Western Reserve. Absolutely fabulous, understanding how children of color are in the situations that they're in. They don't choose that. Society has given that to them. So a lot of the education is tough, as I said, but it's very eye-opening. Extremely worth it. Extremely worth it. I'm very glad I did it.
Interesting point about Dr. Fletcher. She was a Casa advocate for Brown County and got her PhD, taught at UWGB for a while, and then has moved on to Case Western. So it's wonderful to have her present for us. So, so what are you doing now that you've retired again?
Well, there's a leading question. I did stop being an advocate with Brown County after that last case. And now Sue and I work together at the state level, but you know, Sue's up here, I'm down here. And I'm working with Kelly also, and we're doing education development to create more online learning. And I'm also writing a blog. Yes, I'm a blogger. There is a blog called Ask Casa on the Wisconsin state website. So I will give that to you because I don't think my share screen is going to work. It's wisconsin-casa.org, O-R-G. And there are a lot of pieces of information on there. So.
Very good, thank you. A couple of questions been raised over the years. Our friend John Shear, a number of years ago, in his own inimitable way, said, how do these 2- and 3-year-olds get in so much trouble? And, you know, I had to explain to him that the children aren't the ones in trouble, it's the parents that are in trouble. The other question is, well, if you deal with all volunteers, why is it so expensive? Well, National Casa has a requirement that each of the volunteers is supervised by a trained professional, and they've got a maximum of 30 volunteers that they can supervise. So when you start looking at it, to say, well, 30 volunteers represents about 50 to 60 kids over the course of the year. Well, we have to have a supervisor for that, and so if you're serving 300 children, you probably need somewhere in 5 or 6 supervisors, and they get benefits, and you know it's a good position. So that's where the bulk of the dollars in the budget for a local program goes for staff. I mean, it's a service business, and that's where the costs are. Anybody with a question for Deb on her cases?
She's doing one.
Oh, there's one coming. Okay.
I guess you just have to sit closer. To
Okay,
me.
I guess so. I don't know what's wrong with your laptop. Mine works fine.
So Lou Norsetter had a question. Does CASA help to develop age-appropriate activities to share with your child? Yes, we have an ages and stages handout that we're working on. But Lou, you are allowed to choose a case that you're going to be comfortable with. If you would prefer to work with teenagers, bless your heart, take the teenagers. I like little ones. So you do have an option of saying, I prefer these particular age groups. But yes, you are provided with a lot of training. The Brown County CASA office has a lending library, has books and stories and games and all sorts of things you can just go and borrow and take and play with the kids. So good support, very solid support.
Sue, do you want to share a little bit about one of the side projects that the state association is doing with My Stuff, My Bag?
Sure. The state office is really removed from the direct service, which it has its benefits because I'm able to remove myself from the heart-wrenching stories. But one of the things that our staff decided is we didn't have enough direct contact with the children that we serve. So with our PR firm, we created a project called My Stuff, My Bag. And My Stuff, My Bag is founded on the premise that oftentimes when children are removed from their families of origin, they generally leave their homes with their stuff in black garbage bags. And we wanted to give them dignity and ownership. So we partnered with Green Bay Packers and several corporations throughout Northeast Wisconsin. And the Packers oh gosh, I think we have 300 suitcases right now, and they literally are rolling carry-on suitcases. They're really nice, brand new. Everything is brand new. We don't take anything used. And we fill those suitcases with pajamas and socks and underwear and books, toiletries, stuffed animals, blankets, pillows, things that give the children comfort. And we actually received an email from one of the social workers, I think it was in Barron County. A little boy was removed from his family of origin, and when he arrived at the foster home, he had opened the black garbage bag of the things that he had brought from his family, and he actually had an absolute meltdown. He didn't want it. It was a reminder of the trauma that he had just left. And they ended up taking those things away from him, but then they gave him one of our rolling suitcases. And the foster mom said that that was the first time she saw him smile, was because he had his own stuffed animal, he had his own pajamas, he had his own toys, he had his own everything, you know, pillow, blanket. He had something he could hug at night that wasn't a reminder of that trauma. And it's not that we want to take those things away from them, because oftentimes things from their homes are things of comfort, but this is just another layer of giving them ownership and comfort and dignity during really, really difficult times. As you can imagine, it's really easy to engage communities in this project because it's so incredibly impactful. So maybe in the future, Bridget, we can talk about that, because I would love to engage your congregation in some kind of collection for that project.
Absolutely. And just as you said that it's something that it's easy to engage people with, I'm sure that folks would be very interested in helping out and being generous. So
that would be
let's do
fantastic. Thank you. One of the other things that you guys could do for us is April 14th is I Am for the Child Day. And what we do is we can send you a packet that was just made public today. But I Am for the Child Day is a day where people who support the Casa organization and the children that we serve wear blue. And then they take a picture of themselves wearing blue. Sometimes they do it with colleagues, they do it with family members, they do selfies, they do short videos saying I am for the child because, and then post it on social media and hashtag us. It's just a day of awareness. We also generally have, I think Senator Tammy Baldwin is going to be helping us this year. We often have the legislators in the rotunda at the Capitol in Madison. You know, just somebody stands up on the balcony and they take pictures of all the legislators in blue. So if you wanted information on that, it would be awesome for you guys to tag us on Facebook and just blow it up and have some fun with it. It raises awareness. April is Child Abuse Prevention Month.
Deb and Larry, if you can write some of that up for us, that'd be excellent, and we definitely could
Okay.
share.
One of the funding sources, and again, it ties back to the Packers, and we've had two of these now because of the pandemic get postponed. But the Packers hold a celebrity bowling event, and Wisconsin Casa was picked for 3 years to be the charity that got the proceeds, and it was just a wonderful night that the Packers provided. I think there were at least 60 players, coaches, and personnel that came and bowl with you. So a team buys a lanes, I think it's $1,000. And it was remarkable to see these athletes who are just awful bowlers. I mean, it's just, Corey Lindsley was bowling and he finally gave the ball to his wife and let Anna be the bowler because it just wasn't very good, but it was a lot of fun. And it's nice because it's a very contained event. It's not terribly hard to pull off. So that's fun. Sure. So let me give you just a little bit on Brown County, since that's where the vast majority of us live. Casa Brown County has been around now for 16 years. So it came a little bit after the state association. And last year we had 133 volunteers serve 232 children in Brown County. and then an additional 33 volunteers serving 55 kids in Marinette County. And unless Outagamie has snuck by us, Brown was the largest local program in the state, and which is great. But again, Brown County serves about half of the kids, so there's certainly a need for more volunteers, more money that follows. We're anticipating, and I think where we've seen schools open, one of the primary reporting sources are the schools, and we've been a full year without that reporting source. So we're anticipating a surge in cases coming, and I think Manitowoc, which opened earlier, saw that a few months ago. Once these kids got back in school, that there were an increase in cases. So we're expecting that and trying to gear up by having additional volunteers trained and ready to go. So if it's something that you might like to do, its timing is perfect, because it's a training class that starts towards the end of April and concludes in mid-May. So the other piece with Brown, again, Sue mentioned about the traditional nonprofit fundraising. One of the primary fundraisers for Brown County is a program now called Casa Presents. It was originally Casablanca, but they branched out. That's going to be virtual this year. So on the Casa Brown County website, there is a Circle of Champions program, which anybody can participate in the virtual auction. And they really have some great things. You may recall a few years ago, Deb and I went to Italy, and that happened to be a package that was offered through Casa Presents. So we bought that package. We bid on it. We outbid a packer, which is a little scary. Their pocketbooks, but he was a practice squad player, so we were okay. Lucas Patrick, he's now playing, but so that's out there. And it's a circle of whenever we talk to people, you think about the programs require the judges to become involved first. And once the judge is interested, okay, now we need to find volunteers to serve these kids. Well, the volunteers require supervisors, and the supervisors require money. So it just kind of goes around the circle, and that's why Sue starts by dealing with the judges and human services. That's the starting point.
I should point out that after your initial training and accepting a case, the request is to stay with the program for about a year. And some cases, as I said, can go on longer than that. You can stay for the whole term of the case. It's totally your choice. But they ask for a year because you're developing a relationship with this child. You are usually the only consistent event in their life the whole week. They just know that every Wednesday, Miss Deb is going to be at my school to have lunch with me and play with me. If you make that promise, you have to keep it. You're dealing with a child, and they've had just awful things happen in their lives, and you can make the difference by just showing up. And sometimes it's just listening. You just say, tell me about your day. Tell me what happened since I saw you last week. Now, I know Larry and I have spent a lot of time traveling, and how does that fit if you're a CASA advocate? Well, that's where your wonderful supervisor comes in. They will take over and take your case and touch base with that child every week when you cannot be there. And it's another good set of eyes, because when I finish my report every month, it goes to that supervisor and it gets read, and then it's submitted to the court, and the judge will read it and so forth. But then you become a partner with that supervisor, which is such an important relationship, that you have that backup, you have that mental and emotional support. And for me, it's been a lot of wonderful friendships. These young women, and they are very young, but they are so smart. They know what they're doing, and they're just fabulous. So I never felt like I was off on my own. There are a couple stories, I know we don't have time for any more, but You know, I would finish a visit and go sit in my car and call my supervisor and say, I can't leave. Something's wrong here. I can't leave. And I got talked off the cliff and I went home and then I called back and checked in. So you just need to know that you have all that support that you need. I'm so glad I found Casa. It just meant that it was the next step after teaching. And boy, I would do anything for a child, and this is a great way to do it.
So other questions? Anybody out there that?
I just posted Casa Brown County
Thank you.
and the Casa Presents 2021 links. Having attended the Casa Presents, it's a blast. And there are some very fine things that you can bid on in the silent auction. I encourage you to participate.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Thank you for doing that. Technologically, I guess Zoom is not my forte yet. So, got it. Got it.
You did fine.
Do anything you want to close with?
I think that there's one statistic that everybody needs to hear, and that is that there are 7,000 children in the state of Wisconsin eligible for the service of a court-appointed special advocate. That means that we are not serving 6,000 of them. So we need you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you all for listening and sharing, our passion. And we appreciate your helping support our most vulnerable kids in our society. So.
Appreciate it. Thank you, Sue.
Thank you, everybody. Have a great night.
Thanks again to all three of you. This really was.
Yep.
For thanks for tonight, and again, thanks for the work that you do with those kids. That's it's truly remarkable. To all of you who are on the Zoom, do consider volunteering, contributing, and spread the word. You have friends and family who could be impactful in this organization as well, and so get in it yourselves and help others to find Casa as well. As far as our series goes, next week we will be opening our hearts to the power of music. Rizzo Paguero is going to be playing with us and talking with us. John, do you know anything of her program?
I know it's going to be based on a program that she did at UWGB, which told a little bit of her story and also incorporated her sisters. So not to be missed. Tell your friends. She's an incredible talent, as you know.
And so that will be next week. The week after is Julie Harder, who is doing a one night only Seminary Secrets for the spring. So many of you have been part of her classes. Definitely not to be missed. Julie's session does have I think it's a 2-page article that she'd like us to read in advance. You can contact the church office or Julie to get that article, and do plan that week. She plans to be an hour and a half. So just know, so that's not next week, but the week after. It'll be 7 to 8:30 on St. Patrick's Day. So she'll keep us on the straight and narrow for that hour and a half. And then the week after is David Hassell and he's going to also be playing some music with us, but also talking about a real exciting twist that his exciting and tragic twist that his work has taken in this last year, in that he has taken on quite a bit of racial justice work in his law practice, and has really come to he's doing quite a bit of advocacy work in that regard. So some really, really interesting pieces that we have coming up. Thank you all again. Thank Sue for us. It looks like she needed to get off the line right away. So Deb and Larry, do thank her for us. And God bless. We'll catch you all in our next endeavors. Have a good night.